Hello, internet stream world. Coda Radio coming right up. Mike may be delayed. That's hard to say on a Monday morning. Let's try that again. Mike may be delayed just a minute or two. He's, of course, running back from the airport. Doesn't want to miss Coda Radio because who does? Am I right? We're just getting things set up, but don't worry. Live Coda Radio number 367 coming up soon. Stay tuned. Oh, hey there, Mr. Michael Dominic. I see you, but I don't hear you.
Do you hear me though? I gotta read
Oh,
them.
yeah. I know how Mike likes the jazz. Alright, everybody, stay tuned. Coda Radio is about to get happening here. Happy Monday, too. I mean, is everyone having a good start to their week? I know I am. Woke up early. You know when you get out of bed and you just can tell, like you wake up, maybe it's before your alarm, but you're just not tired. You're not debating, like, well, do I need more sleep or fretting about it. You're just, like, up and going. That never happens. Today it did. I'm gonna go finish my pre-flight checks, batten a few hatches, pour me a glass of water, and then I'll be right back. Oh, hey Mike, I hear you. But you're kind of quiet.
How do I sound now, Don?
Okay, yeah, that's better. And I can do, let me... Alright. Pause that guy for a minute, and then... Alright, so here's what I'm at. This is a reading, testing 1, 2, 3, test, test, test. Alright, now you give me that. Same thing.
This is an ad, reading, test 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, test, test, test.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're still a little, let me see if I can boost you on my side. All right, one more for me.
This is a test, test 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, test, test, test.
Okay, we're looking better. Whoa, hello there.
Hello.
How was your flight? How was your travel?
Oh, wonderful. Delays, yes. Plane maintenance issues, yes.
Oh man, why is that always so much fun?
Yeah, just, bad luck with the morning flight. That ended up not being a morning flight for very long.
Yeah, bad luck with the eventual afternoon flight.
Yeah.
All right, well, you get pumped. I'm gonna go finish closing some doors, turning off my
Sounds
AC,
good.
that sort of thing, and then we'll get going. All right, there we go.
Boom.
All right, give me one more reading.
Test 1 2 1 2.
Beautiful.
Check test. All right.
Just want to make sure I record a backup copy of your stream just in case.
Got it. Just in case. Just in case.
Alrighty, testing the mute pedal. Good. All right, go JBot, go. Woohoo! Is jbtitles.com working? Yes, good. Great. JB Titles is up and working. Please do bang suggest as we go along. Now, Mr. Dominic, let's take a moment and maybe we should review about the show. How do you feel about docs and stuff?
I like the doc. I think that's good the way it is. We could do the closure stuff. I think just push it to next week. I'm like half out of it. And
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think
So just go through the hoopla and keep it and end it there at the end.
yeah, and keep it like a thin one.
Okay. And you want to do you want to chime into the 10x stuff? We don't have to go into it. We could just summarize.
Yeah,
it.
let's do that because I've gotten just so much crap about it on the internet. Like, well, I haven't gotten the crap, but there's just what I mean.
There's a lot
just
going
so
on.
much
Yeah.
going on.
All right. Let me prune my tabs here real quick. Yeah. Sorry. No. Thanks for making it today.
No problem. Thank you for being the pain.
Oh yeah.
That heals.
So you know how like sometimes YouTube goes into like a YouTube spiral.
Yeah.
You go down one. Living out here in the Pacific Northwest, we've got some interesting. We've got like mountains and all kinds of stuff. I stumbled onto he's just like a professor at one of the state schools, but he's got this whole YouTube series called Huge Floods, and he just talks about like the crazy geology in this region. So like super volcanoes and ghost volcanoes was a video I watched last night. Who even knows what that is? Well, I do now, and you could too.
Damn.
I know. It was like, I mean, I'm interested in that sort of stuff. I didn't expect to be randomly fascinated by it. I just kept letting it play because it kept being really entertaining.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So ghost volcano is when the it's like no longer active. So there's no longer source of magma to grow, and then the volcano just basically erodes, but you're left with these like big pieces of granite from the magma chamber. That's right,
Hot
Volcano
magma.
Radio, everyone. Hot magma. All right, let's see here. I wish Chrome would just open things where I wanted it every time. It's like they don't even realize that we're trying to have carefully ordered show notes here. Alrighty. Alright, so this is Coder Radio 367. Yeah. Alright, I think I'm ready to get going. What about you, Mr. Dominic?
I'm ready to go.
We're not started. I'm just testing the music here. Yeah, that'll work. All right. Do you have your recorder handy?
I do.
All right. 3,
Start her up.
2, 1, record.
Record.
And away
Okay.
we go. All right. I see me. You just give me a little test right there.
Hello, hello, hello.
I got some levels from you. Perfect. All right. So first things first, let's give ourselves a moment of silence. 3, 2, 1. Boom. How do you like that silence, everybody? I like it a lot.
I love it.
All right, and then let's do a sync point. So I'll count up 1, 2, 3, and then join me on 4.
Sounds good.
1, 2, 3, 4.
4.
Fantastic. All righty. This is Coder Radio 367. Hello, Drew. Thank you for all of your magical recording and editing wizardry. We really appreciate it. Now, first up, some feedback. Gotta remember where I keep my setup's a little different. I'm doing this from home today, so we're powered entirely by that open source software primarily, and it's all running on Linux. Just gotta remember where I keep all my windows. All right, ready to go?
I'm ready to roll. Let's do it.
This is Coder Radio, episode 367 for July 22nd, 2018. 18? What am I saying? God. I changed one little thing and I can't get it right. Let's try that again. And I'll remember what year it is. This is Coder Radio, episode 367 for July 22nd, 2019. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Coder Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show that takes a pragmatic look at the art and business, software development, and related technologies. My name is Wes, and I'm very pleased to be joined by the one, the only, Mr. Michael Dominic. Welcome to the show, Mike.
Hello, hello, Wes. How have you been?
Oh my, I'm doing great. You know, it's going to be somewhere in the 80s today out here in the Pacific Northwest, and
Ouch.
that makes most people freak out, but there's been a heat wave in the U.S., so we're all sitting pretty cool over here. How are you doing over in the swamplands of Florida?
I am good. I actually just got back from a trip. I've been traveling since 4 a.m., so it's great. It's great. But yeah,
See, that
I'm
says
back in the
everything.
swamp where I belong.
That says everything I need to know about you, Mr. Dominic, because you showed up here nevertheless, and I think we've all been there. We know how terrible travel can be. That doesn't stop you, though. So an example of that, last week, we had an episode that we pre-recorded, which I enjoyed a lot, called The Functional First, and that was you helping me out. I was traveling. You accommodated me. So the theme here, Mike's great. The show goes on. You can find it all at coder.show. You can subscribe, follow the RSS, and it'll always be delivered right to you. Now, speaking of Functional First, we got some feedback on that episode over at our subreddit. Yes, there's a subreddit. coderradio.reddit.com is how you find it. Friend of the show, Tyler, writes in, "This was my favorite episode in a long time." Well, thank you, Tyler. As a C++ developer working on a large, primarily object-oriented code base, I've been writing ever more C++ as just a pipeline of data transformations. As you guys mentioned, you can get a lot of benefit, even in an OO situation, from wrapping a functional core, so to speak, up in an object package. Tyler goes further and actually recommends 2 talks that really changed the way he thought about some of this stuff. And the first one is one I've seen and really love and should have linked in the last episode, so you'll find it in the show notes for this episode. And that's Gary Bernhardt's talk, Functional Core Imperative Shell. And I think that's just a great name, and it kind of describes a lot of the idea. Yes, you have to have side effects. Yes, you have to do imperative mutable stuff, but that can all live at the edges, and you can have a core of nicely defined peer functions. And that talk goes a long way to explaining all that stuff I was rambling on about last week. If you're interested in C++ stuff, he also recommends one more link, which is Postmodern Immutable Data Structures, which talks about how some of this stuff works in the C++ world.
Yeah, I think one of the key things, the key takeaways we were trying to get through to people was, in terms of like dipping into functional programming, you don't have to drink the Kool-Aid and go full, Haskell or F# or Clojure or whatever. You can take some of the concepts and the methodologies, or the strategies rather, and implement them and use them in, again, in this case, C++, right?
Yeah, and I really appreciated your inputs on that episode for that reason, because, I get to use some languages. I choose to use languages when I can that make it a little easier to be functional first, but right. You're actually selling software to real people who don't care about the technical details, right? They just want a product from you that works, and you just got to make it happen in whatever language it already exists.
Yeah, it's they don't really care about it at all, to be honest with you. So, yeah.
All right, well, if you guys want to send us feedback like Tyler did, and we would love that. We always appreciate feedback at the Coder Radio program. We don't always have time to read all of it on air, but we do read all of it. We take your links, your suggestions, your criticisms all to heart. Coder.show is the easiest way. Coder.show/contact is the easiest way to get in touch. Now, of course, you can also find us on Twitter, and, well, I follow you, Mike. That's my admission for the day.
Oh, no.
I noticed you tweeting about something I didn't really expect, and I'm sorry if that's a judgment call that is maybe misplaced, but you were tweeting about Emacs the other day.
Yes, I was. So, little known fun fact, my first editor I used professionally was, in fact, Emacs. Or I should say, semi-professionally. And then I got a job, and the guy was, let's just say, not neutral on the Vim Emacs war in favor of Vim, and literally did not allow Emacs at all.
Like, not at all. Just not even to enter the building.
If you were on the team, you used Vim.
Wow, that's... obviously I've seen things like that for more complete development environments. If it's like, okay, well, we all use IntelliJ on the team and we've configured our environment and we keep all the stuff in source control. I get that. And I mean, that could work for Vim too, but it's a little unusual.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I've been kind of looking at Emacs again, just to say, like, it's always been just an itch I've wanted to scratch. And you actually sent me a link to something called Spacemacs, which is pretty interesting. Can you go into a little bit of what is this versus, let's say, proper GNU Emacs, or maybe vanilla GNU Emacs is more fair?
Well, if you weren't lucky enough to kind of grow up with Emacs and experience learning how to use it, how to write a little bit of eLisp, how to configure things, well, it's pretty foreign as an environment in 2019, especially if you're coming from something like IntelliJ or VS Code. Spacemacs is... it's an Emacs distribution, I guess. It focuses on the evil layer, the Vim emulation. So as a Vim user myself, I thought that was great. They basically just ship you like a very nicely configured Emacs right out of the box. And I should be clear, if you're an Emacs user, power user, someone who knows what they're doing and has their own Emacs file, okay, maybe this isn't for you. You've already figured that out. But when I was trying to learn and kind of play with Emacs a little bit, one of the driving reasons was playing with Clojure, and Emacs, being a Lispy sort of environment, that's where a lot of the best plugins were. But I didn't know Emacs from the back of my hand whatsoever. Thankfully, Spacemacs was there for me and made it easy to install all the plugins I wanted, and comes with a nice dark theme right out of the gate.
So tell me a little more about Vim emulation, because that seems to be the biggest pushback I got when I started talking about this on Twitter was, but every machine you're going to SSH into probably has Vim on it. And since I use mostly Ubuntu servers, yeah, they do, right?
Yes.
I guess.
So Emacs has Evil, which is the extensible VI layer for Emacs. And it basically provides a whole bunch of key bindings that you're familiar with.
Wait, it's called Evil?
Yeah, I know. Isn't that amazing? The
That's
free software
amazing.
community generates some of the best names, I've just got to say. Now it's not going to be like picture perfect compatible, like there's if you're a master Vim user, there's probably some things that Evil doesn't have for you. But if you're just looking for a similar editing environment with similar, VI style movements, well, boom. Just look no further than Evil.
Well, you know what? Yes, look no further than Evil. I think that's the perfect way to just cap that. So if you'd like to try Emacs and not sell your soul, you could, I guess, use Spacemacs or GNU Emacs. But I personally am going to drink that demon blood and go Evil.
Yes, and so Evil's like a module you can install. So it doesn't matter what you could use Spacemacs or just install Emacs from the repo. And that's what it's like when you're using Spacemacs too, I should say. So like you just install Emacs like usual. Installing Spacemacs is basically installing their pre-configured configuration directory for you, right? So they've set that all up ready to go, and then they've got some nice documentation and guides to kind of guide you through that. And I'm sure I sound like a complete novice to anyone in our audience who's a master Emacs user. So if you have tips, if you've got better ways that Mike should be exploring, maybe Spacemacs is a horrible abomination in your eyes, let us know.
It could be. Now, if you're a master Emacs user, does that make you an E-master?
Oh, I think it does. I am kind of curious. Like, what are you using on the day-to-day? What's your preferred IDE? Do you like a text editor, or you want something more full-featured? Where do you fall on that spectrum?
Yeah, I am pretty deep into the JetBrains toolchain, although I have been leaning on VS Code a little more, which is why I'm like, well, maybe I could go back to like Emacs or Vim. It's funny because the more and more I'm thinking, I can't decide if I still like the big heavy IDEs or not, because there is something just like very nice about being on a GNOME terminal and just Vimming open or VS Coding a file and working with it. Right now, the problem is what I've done to my VS Code it's gotten to the point of it's its own weird IDE for a bunch of languages, and now it's written in Electron. So
yeah, it sure is. I mean, I will say, as an Electron app, VS Code's one of the snappier ones.
I think it's one of the best, right? So it's I'm probably like, this is probably going to be a failed experiment, and I'm just going to go back to insert JetBrains tools here, only because I've been using them a long time, right? They have RubyMine, they have RubyMine and PyCharm are kind of the two I use a lot. I occasionally use CLion, although I find that one a little less polished than the others.
That's one of the ones I have not actually tried.
Yeah, well, it's just because there's like such a wide variety of C and C++ out there that I think when I last used it, CLion wasn't exactly as mature as, say, a RubyMine or obviously IntelliJ, their Cadillac Java IDE I use anytime I'm doing Java.
Cadillac is probably the best term. I don't know about you, but I think I've met developers who couldn't run Java C on the command line to save their lives.
Yes. I have to say I kind of hate Gradle without IntelliJ, so there is that. Even though now it is less crappy and just like, what is it? Gradle build, Gradle install, whatever.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So does that mean you're like a comfortable VI style key bindings user?
Yeah, I'm pretty comfortable with Vim bindings. I do use them occasionally. Like my RubyMine is set up with Vim bindings, which is, of course, imperfect, right? But yeah, it comes down to like, I'm not sure that I need everything I'm getting with the full IDE, right? And some of it's kind of obnoxious. RubyMine's a bad example because I actually think that's one of the better ones.
I'm interested in that. So let's circle back after you're done.
Okay, sure. Like Project Writer, which is their, and I'm only saying JetBrains stuff because I predominantly work in their tools, is their .NET IDE. And for some reason, in one of the more recent updates, I think it's actually I think it is the last one. They suggest a change that violates the Visual Studio style guide. So if you make the change it suggests, because it thinks you're violating the style, and then you open it in Visual Studio proper, Visual Studio complains. And it's like the dumbest thing about casing. And I know people are going to write in, well, you can change that and have your own style guide. I do like to keep it just to .NET Core's default style guide for obvious reasons.
Sure.
So that's like mildly annoying to me, and it seems like it was just a decision that got made. Again, I think that is a tool that's going to get better, but it is one, I think it is actually their newest implementation of their IntelliJ platform, and it's particularly on Linux, it can be rough if you're trying to do Xamarin. In fact, if you Google Xamarin Android forums on Linux, you will see my little mad botter guy, because it's me in the support forums trying to work it out with other people and the JetBrains folks, because there's a bunch of breaking issues.
Interesting. So I was also curious there, you're talking about RubyMine, and I'm most familiar with their products through IntelliJ, where there's, they've implemented a ton of really fancy static analysis of Java to make it, it's a much more interactive environment, even though Java is so static, and it can generate, tons of code boilerplate for you, and it can jump to definitions and all kinds of much fancier features. How does that compare to RubyMine? I mean, Ruby's a much more dynamic language. Does it have all of those superpowers, or does it go about it in a different way?
It does, yeah. So we can do some pretty advanced refactorings. And the one dirty thing about like Ruby developers, particularly Rails developers, is Ruby is a nice dynamic language that everybody uses hardcore linters for, to basically enforce style and a bunch of rules. I'll give you an example. The most common one is something called the Rubocop, which I'll link in the show notes.
Oh, I am familiar with Rubocop, my friend.
Right. Yes. Okay. So,
we've waged a few battles back and forth in my day.
Yeah, I'm not exactly a fan of it, because I think it goes too far into what I would consider like opinion, right? Like, so every time, okay, let's take this tangent. Every time Ruby comes out with a new like one-line way to do something, the maintainers of Rubocop, just like something happens to them and they feel like that has to be the correct way to do it. And then it complains constantly at me that I'm not using the new fanciness. Which if you have code bases that are relatively, a couple years old, that can happen quite a lot. And if you're OCD like me and want to get rid of all those warnings, yeah. RubyMine has its own linter for Ruby, and it is much more basically the one of the accepted Ruby style guides, and it's pretty. I think it's a pretty reasonable accommodation to what an experienced Ruby developer would say is the, accepted style. Where Rubocop is, I don't know. I feel like it's the Apple of linters, and it's like pushing you forward, right? It's trying to get you to like update everything.
So RubyMine, it's easy to have the benefits of a linter, especially as you say in a dynamic environment, but it's not the same sort of, with Rubocop, you either got to do a lot of kind of careful tuning sometimes, or make sure you only stick to the stable releases, and you might have to do some work integrated into a project. But maybe with RubyMine, you can kind of just start using it, get the benefits, and not have to make dramatic changes across your team.
Yeah, I mean, the one big advantage of Rubocop, though, because it does go so far into stylistic things, you could basically just make it your company style guide and say we all use Rubocop and warnings are not acceptable, so that you don't have different styles in the same code base.
Yeah,
but that assumes
that makes sense,
like
right?
a
And maybe you
greenfield
probably
project, right?
integrated it into your CI system, so it'll warn you.
Yeah, well,
as
you
go
can
through
actually
it.
integrate it into VS Code in particular in Atom. So, and actually, I think there's a plugin for RubyMine for Rubocop if you want to go that way.
I'm sensing a Coder Radio Future special here, which is Mike pimps your Ruby setup, because I wouldn't mind it, and I bet there's some audience members who wouldn't mind it either.
All right, here's the key: spinning rims.
Ooh, shiny. You know what else I bet is pretty shiny, Mr. Dominic? Not that you have one, but if you did, well, it'd probably be your Tinder profile, and it would brag about your Leet IDE setup, no doubt. I saw some news I wanted to ask you about as, the app developer that you are. Tinder has now grown to Tinder has now joined the growing backlash against App Store taxes by bypassing Google Play, right? So instead of going through Google Play, using the credit card stuff, paying that 30% tax, Tinder has joined companies like Spotify and Netflix and saying, hey, give us your credit card, we'll bill you directly. What's happening here, Mike? And is this a sign that something's going to have to finally change in the industry? Or are these just the big players who can do it, using their muscle and getting away with it?
I think both of those things are true, right? I mean, don't want to use the word railing, but I guess railing is technically true.
I think railing is fine.
For years about how 30% for small businesses like myself is just too much money, right? And in the past, I think it was a weaker argument than it is today, because like it just does not cost that much to host individual apps anymore. And credit card processing with things like Gumroad, which is where I used to sell my Mac apps, and frankly, Stripe's API is awesome and very affordable to use. It's ridiculous, right? Like, having said that, if I were to release a mobile app soon, I would certainly not go through any of this effort to avoid the Apple tax or the Google Play tax, because I'm not Tinder, right? I'm not. Who's the other guy? Fortnite's doing it too, right?
Oh yeah, and that's a big one too, right? I mean,
and they're doing it on
Google
Play,
gaming on mobile.
Yeah, and they're like, when it's millions of dollars, that 30%, I definitely see where they're coming from. I do wonder, and I'm sure they'll never tell us, what is, because if you think, classic like startup business development thing, right? This is the business part. The harder you make it for someone to purchase something in an app, every dialog box, every field you require them to fill out will peel off some percentage of your purchasers.
Right.
And this isn't Mike's theory.
Give you money right now through Google that I've already set up. That's a lot easier. We're all sick of entering credit card details.
Right, which is like the primary advantage of the App Store in-app purchase system, which is why, like, if I were to release, say, an iPad app, it would absolutely use Apple's IAP. I would love to know what the leakage rate is, right, for Tinder. Like, let's just play numbers. 20,000 people a month. I don't use Tinder. I'm married, so I have no idea. Do you know how it works? What do you buy in Tinder?
A lot of those dating apps, it's premium plans, right? So you get some base feature amount, but if you want to say, you swiped left on someone, you said you weren't interested, but you messed that up, and you want the ability to go back and undo it, well, pay $5 a month, and then you can.
Right. So it's like a LinkedIn premium account.
Exactly.
Almost. Okay. Well, what LinkedIn does in this case actually is I think it's slightly cheaper if you buy it on the website, but I think for Sales Navigator or something. But yeah, I would love to see like if out of 20,000 people they would normally close via IAP, 15 or 10 or whatever. What is the new number going to be forcing them to go to the website and enter their credit card and do it that way?
That is a great question. Where do you think
Go ahead.
What do you think the right number is, right? I mean, Google should get some cut maybe for enabling the platform and providing a whole bunch of APIs and stuff and payment systems? And if 30 too much is unreasonable, I mean, should it be some sort of sliding scale or just a lower flat rate?
It currently is a sliding scale, right? So if you do a subscription model and it's an annual one, on the second year it's 15% now. The problem is, and what I've seen particularly, like I'm on a quest, and we could talk about this in another show, for a very specific iPad app that I want when I travel. And if I can't find it, I'm just going to write it because I keep needing the same thing every trip. But this is an app you would really just buy and not subscribe to, right? Because come on, like, I'll just, use an example, like podcast players, all the big ones now are making you subscribe to your podcast app, which, coming from at least my position of like having been a more traditional Mac developer in the past, makes no sense at all to me.
Right. We've entered this era of everything must be a subscription service. And for something that makes sense, and you want like continual revenue with the presumption that improvements will be coming to the product. But for a lot of things, I just want to buy a hammer. I have it. I need to do this one thing with it. If you never update it again, that's fine. Give me the hammer. I'll give you $10.
Yeah, like I am. This is Mike's tangent. I am endlessly. So okay, I had to buy Office for somebody, for a relative, this past week, because they're older. They didn't know. They just didn't,
They needed a
couldn't
hammer.
do it. I went to the store to buy Office, to Best Buy.
A physical store, like you got away from your computer, you found your keys, you got your wallet, you got in the car, you drove to the store, then you walked down the aisle and located the physical boxed version of the software. Is that what you're saying?
No, because there was no boxed version.
Wow. So you were just left looking like an idiot asking, do you have software here?
You know what it is? It's just a key code. It's just a code, a license key. That's all it is. You're buying it looks like a gift card. And the best is the salesman was killing himself to get me to buy Office 365 instead of the traditional, small business, whatever it is, home business license. I stuck to my guns. Even when installing the standalone perpetual whatever year Office, it still required you to sign in with a Microsoft account. Then after you had just spent $200 and something on this license, it tried to hit you up to sign up for Office 365 anyway.
Of course it does.
It's ridiculous. Can't you just buy Excel? It's just crazy to me, but
As a Linux user, I appreciate some aspects of Office 365 just for letting me operate in that environment in a nice way. But you're right. It was one thing when these were additional models, oh yeah,
right.
Or if it makes more sense for you, here's this other way to use our products and pay for it. Great, fine. It does feel like they're just trying to deprecate you buy software and come close to kind of even something like own it anymore. It might be a figment of our past imaginations.
Exactly. So I'll put the question to you. What do you think the right number ought to be for the App Store percentage?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think that I have a hard number to say. How do you value the platform, right? Like, how do we make a good accounting of all the services that are provided? Because, obviously, it's someone they just get to say, right? Like, it's their platform. But,
we should actually know Spotify and a few other companies are suing because of this very issue.
Right. So we may see. When it's a healthy environment, when there are enough options, when they're actually making good investments, then a slightly higher fee would make a little more sense to me. If it's just sort of a monopoly tax, you have to play on our game and we have a store you have to use, so here you go, pay us money now. That feels a little bit worse and doesn't really help the end user very much.
And the side of it that is a little weird is just because I mentioned Spotify, where you are now competing with the platform vendor who you rely on, and they are taxing you 30% to compete with them. That's where I think it almost gets weird. In a way, I kind of don't care as much as I used to about the 30% cut. I just almost feel like if you are in the business of being a platform vendor, you should not also be an application or service vendor, which I know is never going to happen. But you see what I'm saying? The temptation to screw over your competitors is just a little too juicy, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. There are some weird, maybe even perverse incentives at play here.
Right.
So, all right, there's another topic I wanted to pick your brain about, and there's, I think, another set of perverse incentives at play. You brought this up in our off-show production chat, and that's the recent little Twitter storm over 10x engineers. What's going on, Mike, and what's a 10x engineer?
Well, that's a great question. So what's going on is some startup guy whose name I don't recall, but it's kind of not super important for the story. Thank you. Posted, if you have the actual tweet, if you want to read the tweet out, I do not in front of me.
Founders, if you ever come across this rare breed of engineers, grab them. If you have a 10x engineer as part of your first few engineers, you increase the odds of your startup success significantly.
Right. So first off, I don't know if I'm a 10x engineer, but if you are a startup founder and you see me and you just grab me, I might punch you. So
yeah, I mean, 2019, yeah. You got to get consent now.
You have to like maybe a brief written contract, general grabbing agreement or something, right?
Perfect.
Yeah. So, okay. So he's asserting that there are these magical people called 10x engineers. I think we've all heard this term for years now. I kind of don't know that they exist, but there are definitely people who are more like, I call them math savvy than I am. I would consider you one of these people. Like you are able to go more down into the kind of mathematics fundamentals of things, or is it just because you use Clojure and that's how I see it?
Well, maybe.
Where I tend to work with a little more abstraction, except when I go insane and start coding to boards, but we won't worry about that. I don't know. Like, all right, let's take a step back. Have you ever met a 10x engineer? And if so, like, what is the profile of that person? Who is that person?
Yeah, and that's what a lot of the thread kind of spends some time trying to suss out. And honestly, when I first saw it, it's kind of hard to tell how serious all of it really was. Now, I do think we've all met people, and I don't even want to say people, because time and context, I think, is one of the key parts that isn't brought up enough in this discussion. But I think we've all been in contexts where there have been people around us who were able to accomplish an incredible amount, right? Either they knew the right things, they had the right tools, they were able to combine all of that together, they defeated distractions or questions and delivered the remarkable work. And I think it's reasonable to want to assess how that happens, but it's probably dangerous to enable too much cult of personality. There also seems to be a little bit of, is there like an exploitation factor here? I mean, obviously, you know, the employee-employer relationship is also at play.
Yeah, it's also it just feels bad to me to even have the label. And I'm almost looking at it from another perspective of, you know, I think I tweeted something snarky about this when somebody mentioned it to me, like, I said it to you in Slack. That's right. What I really hear is, you know, the hot thing used to be full stack a couple years ago, right?
Oh, yeah.
And what I really heard when all these startup guys would say, I need a full stack engineer, is I don't want to pay a back end and a front end engineer. Right? I would like 2 jobs done for 1.25 or 1.
Right. I'd like to pay, approximately a little bit more maybe than one salary and do everything that I need, please.
Right. So, okay. But there definitely is the type of software developer who is very good at coding. And I think this is something some of the other people commenting on this brought up, but is kind of, how can I say this, politically correct? A gaping defecation hole.
Yeah, you know, I've been lucky enough to work at some places in the past that had at least would talk about, you could argue about implementation, but talk about like a no assholes policy, right? And the idea is, even if you are this incredible engineer, like, you don't get to dictate what happens, you don't get to be a jerk. And I think that plays into that personality aspect. Like, there are so many skills that go involved. Like, you might be able to sling code really well, but especially in like a larger enterprise environment, there's a lot of social aspects that are at least as important as that to the overall operating of a team or an organization. Yeah. It also seems to be just sort of bad statistics sort of stuff. Like, yes, clearly, like, there are people with different ranges of those skill sets, right? Some people are good at doing code review and mentoring. Some aren't. Some just want to be like down in the weeds and can write a super fast, correct network stack implementation, and others are really good at modeling data pipelines, right? There's all different skill sets, so we have to be careful how we judge that. It also seems like even within those skill sets, yes, there's a distribution of skill. Focusing on the 10x developer is one way to look at it, but shouldn't we also be looking at the other extreme? Like, what are the problems going on? This is why I like to talk about functional programming so much as one aspect, I think. Like, what are the problems going on that are preventing more of us from being more productive, right? Do we not have the right tools? Do we not have the right knowledge or assistance or skills? Maybe we can't all be 10x developers, but I think we can all be better than 1x.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's, you get dangerously close to things like process, expectations. There's a lot of like management-y things. Like, for instance, I'm thinking about this from a contracting perspective. Was the job just like massively underbid? Right? Because then no matter how good of a developer you are, you're never going to actually be successful in that job.
Right. You've already set yourself up for failure.
Are you running any form of waterfall? Because it's just not possible, at least for as long as I've been doing this, to actually have a customer who upfront knows everything they want. And then once you have a waterfall, and what I really mean, so waterfall, I mean fixed bid, you're just going to end up in a fight because you do have to get paid for your work, but they may decide that they want something different, right? And you're always doing this hostage negotiation, which is why you should do agile hourly contracts all the time. It ends up being cheaper for the customer, less stress for you. It's a harder sell to people people who aren't really in the industry, but anybody coming from an engineering background, unless they're like literally building bridges where it's a little different, is going to know that like an agile process is going to work better. And I know that's a big statement, and I'm happy to hear any feedback. But if you are like a waterfall guru and you can tell me like there's a way to do this, great. I have not seen it work because just the upfront cost of trying to even do any kind of that waterfall documentation is generally very high, and I have done it. I used to sell it as a service. You just don't know, right? Like the customer is never going to know everything that they want up front. I mean, how could they? They haven't seen anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I do like. I mean, what you're saying. I like the chances for more review, more flexibility. That's an interesting point, and I've certainly seen that go pretty wrong myself. One person whose thoughts I appreciated in this whole discussion was Anti-Res of Redis fame, and he had a great blog post kind of detailing talks about some of the issues with how we're talking about the conversation in general, but then also just had a good list of how you might talk about programming productivity and some of the things that you might need, right? Like you got to know how to break things down into small tasks and be able to get those subtasks done. And so an example might be for you, Mike, right? Like if you've made Rails apps, web servers, web sort of back-end apps, worked with databases a whole bunch, that means there's a whole list of subtasks that are just cached for you, right? You're like, oh, okay, I need another REST endpoint. No problem. Let me just bang that out in an hour or two and it'll be done. But if you're coming from a different world, you're moving from the embedded environment, say, that's a lot to figure out for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I will say there are signs of good, or let's say above average developers, right? Like having a toolbox of scripts, or like, I guess in the world of Docker, container configuration files that you just have pre-ready to go and that you reliably use, right? But yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've set up Rails in Doku and Postgres, right? Like seriously, I must have done it hundreds of times by now. Even in OpenSUSE twice.
Even in OpenSUSE. Yeah, he's got some other good points that are definitely worth checking out. Things like not chasing perfectionism and making sure you keep simplicity in mind. Dear audience, I'm sure you probably have some thoughts on this whole discussion, debate, and maybe some thoughts about what you value when trying to assess your fellow coders out there. If you do, please let us know. We'd love to hear it. coder.show/contact. Mike, you've had a long day. I think that means we should take this moment to wrap up today's episode. If they want more of you, though, especially sleep-deprived Mike, because he can be fun, well, you're also on Twitter, right? What's your handle again?
@Dominuco, but I will try not to be fun today.
Yeah, that's probably best. You deserve a very long nap. I'm on Twitter as well. I'm @WesPayne, and of course, the whole network's there too, @JupiterSignal. If you want to subscribe to the show, well, that's just coder.show/RSS for our direct RSS feed, and you can go to coder.show to find all the links for everything else you might want, including our back catalog, show notes for any particular episode, and links to just about everything else. If you want to check out other great Jupiter Broadcasting productions, just head on over to Jupiter Broadcasting. Just head on over to jupiterbroadcasting.com. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you right back here next week. All right, Coda Radio. All right, hopefully that's a short enough show for you there, Mr. Dominic. Where'd you go? Where'd you go?
A little too fast and loose with the mute pedal.
Yes, we've all been there. All right, now it's voting time, everybody. And I guess, Mr. Dominic, you and I can stop recording when you're ready.
Count it down for me.
3, 2, 1. Stop.
You have travel coming up again, don't you?
Yeah. So we were going to try to, we're doing there's all kinds of stuff going on, but the week of, let's see here, the Monday the 12th of August, if we could pre-record for that episode, maybe the Monday before on the 5th, or whenever else works, but that would be swell for me.
Okay, so let me just pop up in the cal.
Yeah.
When is that?
August 12th.
You want to record a double on August 5th?
Yes.
That looks cool to me.
Okay, great.
It doesn't matter now, but the week of September 11th-ish, I am traveling again. I probably will be here for the show.
Okay.
But I just want to put that in your headspace that we
Cool.
might need to do a double the first week. Yep.
Yeah, just let me know, and that's totally fine.
All right, cool beans, man.
Yeah, you can get out of here.
Good
I'll
beans.
tend to things. And what was that?
All
Did
right,
we get that recorded? That something about evil? That could have been the title. What was it?
Oh, yeah, Emacs Evil or something.
Yeah, but there was like one thing. I'll just look back in the file. That's fine. You get out of here. We'll wrap things up.
All right.
Thank you for showing up.
Take it
I know
easy.
it's been a long day. Much appreciated.
No worries. Happy to do it. I love it. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, Mike. And thank you, live stream, for showing up. This has been a lot of fun. Coca-Cola Radio. Now, there's going to be some more liveness going on this week. I don't think there's a BSD now. I think that's pre-recorded this week, but there is, of course, a live Linux Unplugged. We've got a special live guest, too, so this is one you don't want to miss. Chris is back from his vacation, riotous and ready to go. Should be a lot of fun, so we'll probably get things started around 1:30 or so Pacific time. Come hang out. It's going to be a blast. And then, the Friday stream, it's coming back. Yeah, that's right, 1 p.m. on a Friday. The best darn way to wrap your weeks up with your favorite JB crew members. It's going to be a good turnout, lots of fun, and it's live, of course. It's Friday. Not today. I mean, today it's Monday, of course. So I guess we should all go get back to work. What are you guys doing listening to Coda Radio? I won't tell, though, because I'm glad you're here. If you'd like to make any last-minute title suggestions, now's the time. jbtitles.com to go cast a vote. Bang suggest in our IRC room. And you can go to jblive.tv if you're watching the stream and you want to find other ways to watch it or use our embedded IRC chat room. You can also go to bit.ly/JupiterChat to find a chat room right there, too. It's so easy. IRC's never been easier. What happened to this? There we go. My music disappeared. I added a whole bunch of new random pieces of music that shouldn't get us flagged on YouTube. So like half of these I haven't listened to. So let's play an old favorite, and I'm gonna get out of here because I gotta go pick a title, wrap up these Coda Radio docs, and of course finish preparing for that live Linux Unplugged. Really do appreciate you joining us. These live shows are just way more fun when you're here too. So see you tomorrow.